you very much for such a wonderful presentation. I'm sorry, representing the business community, I think I'm the only one here. You would have been at the podium of the big palaces of the business communities. I don't want to name, but I'm sorry this credit has gone to Karachi Editors Club. Wonderful that Karachi Editors Club has come forward to say that what business communities demand is for economic reforms. I think you have laid down everything and everything was in order. Nothing was mismanaged, nothing was miscreated. It was very well informed and enumerated. One thing which is missing from the economy is the charter of economy of the politicians. Please emphasize on that when we need the charter of politics, we need the charter of economy. All politicians in our country, whosoever they are or they may be, they're only talking about themselves, tall muses of themselves, waiting for each other's grudges and false nooses. But nobody is getting together to become a charter of economy, to think seriously that how we can save our country. If Pakistan is there, the charter of economy is there, that means that this is the only solution. I would like you to kindly just sing down a few words on it, please.
See, the charter of economy as it is being used as a term today in the press as well is not possible for the politicians to come to terms with. What you need is a legislative destination identified for your economics, for your economic destination to be identified in your constitution, which means that if your economic canvas is going to be based on your ideology, then a charter of economics is possible. Other than that, it will become extremely difficult because each of these political parties you're talking about, maybe 14 or 15 of them today, they have all vested economic interests of their own. Pakistan is like a place they are scavenging. I mean, there are regional parties, and then there are parties who are family oriented. Then there are parties which are ethnically based. So for them to come to terms, basically the only term they can come to is who will grab which profit center. So it will never be for Pakistan. So unless you have legislatively identified the moorings, the framework, all right, and people who work within this framework, will they be able to be able to work on a charter of economics. That's my take on this.
Thank you very much. My name is Bajami. Your lecture was a really great, tremendous one, and I hope that many of us very enlightened. But there was a missing point in that. Sitting here in this AC room, we always forget the rural population. I couldn't understand why we always talked about business and industry. Why not agriculture? Every Tom, Dick and Harry has in this country has always used to talk about the agriculture is backbone of our country. In your lecture also that I'm surprised that no country can grow when the most 80% of the people live in rural areas. We only think about urbanization and industrial growth in urban areas. What are your take on that?
All right. I have circulated a paper which I made a reference to called the reforms package, which is in the bag which you have. Right. If you come to the first page, when you talk about agriculture, it is contributing only 36% of our GDP. Number one. Number two, it represents over 60% of our population. And this population is devoid of a buying power. They don't have any buying power. So when you talk of urbanization, basically you're taking a man who's a Hari or who is a Mazara from absolutely rudimentary living conditions into an urban environment. Then, when you're taking him into an urban environment and you're linking your currency to gold, all of a sudden, overnight, he has buying power. So he would like to send his children to school. He would ask for labor compensation, for which he gets only what they can produce from the land. An ordinary Mazara is getting 47 kgs of wheat to be as his labor compensation. That is the predominant scale in Punjab, for instance. So you can't rely on this. Urbanization is for this purpose, for empowering, fiscal empowerment of the population. So whether it is agriculture, or whether it is a mining labor, or it is somebody working in a coal mine, or it is somebody working as your domestic servant. Irrespective, when you fiscally empower a population, they do not remain captive labor. And that is the purpose of urbanization. This model has worked all over Europe and has been working in America from 1774, for instance. So, I am not disregarding this. In fact, I would like to add, for the benefit of everybody else here, that our total area is about 881,913 square kilometers. And of this, if you take urbanization for 222 million people, we are just going to be reckoning with 170,000 square kilometers. The rest of the land is available. And the rest of the land which is available up to 19.28% for industrial states, 19.3% only for agriculture. So, these people are exempt from taxes, the landowners, and they are also got captive labor. So urbanization will kill that. What we want to finish here is captive labor and captive constituencies for any tangible growth of the economy. And that is fundamental in my proposal.
जो 3 पॉइंट्स मुझे बहुत दिलचस्प लगे और एक थोड़ा सा जो एक सवाल के जवाब में निकल कर आया, मैं चाह रहा हूँ थोड़ा सा उसके आप मतलब एक आपने कॉर्पोरेटाइजेशन की बात की, एक आपने जो उस अर्बनाइजेशन और उसको जो लिंक किया और तीसरी चीज़ आपने ये कही कि the land control should be handed over to one state department, not government department, state department. Government can control the government has political interest in that. And in response to even earlier, you said that the vested interest जो है हमारे यहाँ जितनी political parties हैं, they represent either the interest of a region, of a language, of a family, of a sect, for example. ये सब कुछ चीजें हो रही हैं. But then who is Pakistan? Isn't it the collection of all those things? Or if Pakistan is already that party that is already controlling most of the land, और हम क्या कहते हैं अब कश्मीर बनेगा DHA, तो we already have an authority like that you mentioned. So we are going into that direction, and if we believe that if we define Pakistan as that authority, and if we put all other interests as at cross purposes with those interests, तो फिर हमारी इकॉनमी जो है वो डिसबैलेंस ही रहेगी. उसका बैलेंस अगर हम ये तय करते हैं सब मिलकर पाकिस्तान, सो मे बी वो जो कॉर्पोरेटाइजेशन वाला कॉन्सेप्ट है वो सबके इंटरेस्ट में होगा. मे बी वो जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की ज़रूरत है वो सबको हो ही जाएगी, क्योंकि पैसा तो सभी को चाहिए, तरक्की तो सभी करना चाहिए उसको। जो
देखिए यहाँ पे जो माइंड सेट है वो फ्यूडल माइंड सेट है, और चूंकि इकोनॉमी के अंदर इकोनॉमी जो आपकी है वो ब्यूरोक्रेसी के कब्जे में है। और ये मैंने मेरे यूट्यूब चैनल पर अगर आप देखना चाहें तो इसमें कई तकरीरें हैं विद फिगर्स। तो इनसे अगर आप हटना चाहते हैं इस माइंड सेट से, तो इंडियन एक्सपेरिमेंट वॉज वेरी वेरी सक्सेसफुल। कि 532 रियासत्स as they were, I mean, call them whatever you, they were, I mean, under kings and then Maharajas. They were all nationalized. All land was taken, and now the entire Indian, as a country, I mean India, now belongs to one federal government. So land in any form is being utilized on a leasehold basis. यहाँ के ऊपर एक कराची सिटी alone, you have so many landlords that you can go crazy. You have cantonments and landlords, you have DHA as landlords, you have railway as landlords, you have port as landlords, you have civil aviation as landlords. Now, these institutions, you have PNSC as landlords. Now, their job was to grow in their own right for the jobs they were doing. So if they were paying a tax on the land holding to the federal government, they would have become internationally competitive. Right now the chairman, for instance, of civil aviation, or whatever he's called, the DG of civil aviation, he's more concerned about what rent he can collect on the land which civil aviation holds. Similarly with Karachi Port Trust, similarly with Port Qasim, similarly with anybody else. So unless this land ownership basis is not taken away and given to one federal body, and I got educated on this in my several meetings which I had to have when I was adopting the tourism policy for the government of Pakistan, which made tourism put tourism on the industrial investment schedule. And I realized in my interaction with the Surveyor General of Pakistan that Pakistan is fragmented for land ownership in excess of 2,000 different autonomous landowners, which includes the institutions. So unless you give it to one person, one agency, one department, and take it away from everybody else, then they will start evolving. PNSC का आप देख लीजिए, PNSC बहुत अच्छा एग्जाम्पल। 6 जहाज हैं उनके पास, 32 जहाज की फ्लीट खत्म करके 6 जहाज या 7 जहाज हैं उनके पास। तो उनका रेवेन्यू सोर्स अगर आप बैलेंस शीट उठा के देखें तो जहाज़ों से कम है, जमीनों से ज़्यादा है। यही हाल आपका पोर्ट का है, यही हाल आपका सिविल एविएशन का है, यही हाल आपका आर्मी का है, नेवी का है। पता नहीं हर आदमी जो है वो एक फ्यूडल लॉट बना बैठा हुआ है। So they are not evolving in their own right, and they are not evolving because they are getting money, and then they are also doing land grabbing. I mean, in the army, they own 12.5% of this country. They have grabbed the land. Do you need cantonments within the city? No, you don't. So what the hell are you doing here? And we have to be apologetic in being able to question them कि भाई वो जनरल साहब है, वो आपको अंदर करने को नौकर है भाई, हमारे टैक्स का टैक्स यूज करना जाता है, चाहे वो जज हो, चाहे वो जनरल हो, चाहे साला कोई हो, they are being paid with our taxes, and this time we the taxpayers must put them on call and ask them, what the hell are you doing? Who are you working for and why? Sorry.
Assalamu alaikum, Mohammed Ahmad Waqas, Special Correspondent of financial domain. I have two questions actually. First of all, youth. You've spoken beautifully, and you've given great solutions to the nation. But youth has been actually totally forgotten, ignored in this country. 65% of the total population consists of youth. Nazarandaz हमेशा उनको किया गया. Today we actually gathered here in this office gathering to discuss the economic reforms. But youth is missing. How do you see the role of youth in this country?
See, the youth, or the old people, or
You guys are actually the inspiration for this
Right.
country.
Right.
So where is youth? For example, if we discuss about the IT and call center industry and the software houses, the entrepreneurs who started them, what is Zabardasti में लेकर चले, bringing remittances in the country, creating jobs, training the youth. लेकिन they are not as treated carefully. जैसे इंडिया में उनको टेकअप किया गवर्नमेंट ने अपनी IT एंड कॉल सेंटर इंडस्ट्री को, अपने रेमिटेंसेस को बहुत दे हैव एक्चुअली इंक्रीज्ड अ लॉट. तो एक्चुअली पाकिस्तानी गवर्नमेंट, previous governments, current government, we actually ignored this segment, the information technology and the call center, software manufacturing, the upgradation developments. India has been actually doing a lot of, they are occupying the international market. हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि the youth is not protective. Pakistani youth is it has incredible potential. लेकिन उनको सही से शायद कभी इस्तेमाल नहीं किया गया है. How do you see this gray area of this system? How this youth can be a player of this segment?
देखिए, I recall a visit to one of my initial visits to America, one of the first ones, many years ago. And one of my relatives who was taking me around to show the city they were living in said, I'm to introduce to you a feature of every city in America which has got a road, and that is called a drag. So I said, what happens on a drag? And they say, our youth come here and they race here. And I said, where does the youth get the money to find vehicles and motorbikes and whatever else they use the drag? We are rich. The potential of our youth, and this country is very fortunate because the predominant population of this country are youth, are laborers. What is the unfortunate part is that you don't have the money for the youth to give them requisite amount of education and give them the opportunity to use their skills and evolve with that. And that is why we need to link our rupee or revalue our rupee by linking it to gold, because that is what is the demand of our ideology. We cannot save in an alien currency. We cannot trade in an alien currency. Why should we? You see, at the time of Caliph, 1300 years ago, the Romans, when they were thrown out from Syria by the Muslims in the time of Hazrat Umar, the Roman currency was being used. And at that time, the Romans, because they were a retreating force, they threatened that, look, we're going to write something very blasphemous and defamatory about your prophet on our currency because that's the medium of exchange you're using. And that was, at that time, 1300 years ago, that the medium of exchange was changed. Your medium of exchange has to be evaluated on the basis of your assets in the country. Your natural resources are rich, your human resources are rich. For your currency to not represent that or reflect that is bad leadership is a leadership that is subservient to the colonist, and that sort of leadership must be kicked out of office. You want the youth, you want the agriculturists, you want people to flourish here, empower the rupee. Do not worry about the dollar. People are crying today कि भाई dollar 200 रुपए का हो गया, 500 रुपए का हो गया. So what? It is meaningless. Why have you not empowered the rupee? And you're not empowering the rupee because when I spoke to the top brass here, the guy turned around and told me, yeah, we can't divorce the dollar from our economy. I said, why? He said, well, we are getting sensitive military equipment from America. तो जो माइंड सेट ये है कि आप अपने लोगों को एम्पावर नहीं करेंगे, आप खुद प्रोड्यूस नहीं करेंगे, आप अमेरिका 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 आप चाहते हैं. ये वो एक शेर है जो अभी याद आ गया पीर का है कि कितने सादा है कि बीमार हुए जिनके सबब उसी अवतार के लौटे से दवा लेते.
Agha Sahab, I've got a question and a tangent. What you're saying is something which is existing today, and that is, I'm sure you're aware of, the corporate profits, in जितने भी announced at the end of this year, every corporate making the stock exchange will be here, meaningless. The corporates are making about 40% plus profits. जिसको भी उठा के देख रहे हैं, एंग्लो को देख लें, 40 को देख लें वगैरह, जो भी banks making plus of 40%. Now the point is कि आपको गोश्त की प्राइस बढ़ेगी, मेरा ख्याल है, पर मसला नहीं पड़ेगा, आप फिर भी खाते रहेंगे. मगर आपके जो ड्राइवर है उस तक नहीं पहुंच रहे, और ये जो इन्फ्लेशन है, this is the मसला. Elite capture. Now in this proposal, I'm going to come to this slightly later. What is, how do you get rid of this elite capture? ये ऊपर किसी को मसला नहीं है inflation का. The मसला is down, so it's not trickling down. So do we need to kind of kick in certain kind of socialism or what? To get this thing organized. But this elite capture, you look at the profits of corporates, it's going up and up and up, and everyone's hunky-dory over there. But जो नीचे है वो इन्फ्लेशन से मारा गया. ये जो है ये मैलेज, how do you solve that? ये कुछ.
So corporate size आपका क्या है?
Secondly, sorry.
Corporate size जो है इस economy के अंदर, it is minuscule. It's about 300 and some odd companies on the stock exchange.
The banks, for instance. I'm talking about you run it down and you can come into a point where you can enlarge the whole. Even the agriculturists, they made a lot of profit this last cycle. So I'm trying to say we have an elite capture of this, of politics as well as economy. This is what we need to get broken down. The second thing you're trying to suggest over it is kind of a revolution, of ideas. It's fantastic solutions that you're giving, but who's going to enforce them? Are you going to get it done? Are you going to go to Imran Khan and tell him to get it done? How are you going to enforce this? I'm okay for a classroom study, but how is it going to be done? Is there a solution to that or not?
Sir, when I was coming here to the hall, I promised myself that I will not diverge into any political comment or any political personality. So let's keep Imran Khan out of this. You see, first thing. Number two, that when you talk of socialism being part of this agenda, it is way away from socialism. Socialism, the template for socialism is very different to what I have suggested. A fishbone structure is being used way back from 1774. If you go to the Freemasonry movement, and then we wander to today's capitalist society of the US. Here, if you afford your population two basic things, literacy and buying power, And if you afford them just buying power, they'll get literacy on their own. You can forget about an elitish population usurping their rights. That is the history of sociology all over the world, at least in the last 700 years. If you pick up the Muqaddimah of Ibn Khaldun, for instance, he has presented the same thing. You have to allow the populations to fend for themselves, provided you give them education. How will you give them education unless you empower the rupee? Your rupee is in the dumps because you are following a colonial agenda. You're following colonial supremacy and subservience. It is not acceptable, and this is being done by our leadership. And this leadership is confined to only 1,000 people or bureaucrats at the top. We, the taxpayer, our writ is give us the accountability of what the hell you're doing. And if you can't, we must just sack them. And we can only do that because we are funding. That's all. It's very simple. आप जो कह रहे हैं कौन उसको enforce करेगा? We don't need the army or Imran Khan or anybody else to come and enforce it. We are there. We are there to enforce it. हम पैसे दे रहे हैं, आप पैसे दे रहे हैं, ये जो आदमी आपको चाय पिला रहा है वो पैसे दे रहा है. मैंने आपको भी अपनी तकरीर में भी ये कहा कि इस वक्त जो टैक्सेशन का हाल है कि जो एक बच्चा एक माँ के शिकम में है वो भी टैक्स देगा, क्योंकि इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेस का जो बिना है इट इज प्रोपोस्टरस. आप इसकी क्यों फिक्र कर रहे हैं सोशलिज्म की? The thing is that we are getting together here and we will continue to get together. Because the business community is completely committed on one thing, no more investments here. If this drama, जिसको उर्दू में मैंने अभी यहाँ कहा अपनी तकरीर में, ये 69 बाजों की नौटंकी है जो चल रहा है, ये जब तक चलता रहेगा भाई तुम खुद संभालो. You think the brass can handle it? Then who will they handle it from? America will handle it?
देखिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने बड़ी अच्छी बातें की हैं. आप रूट कॉज को क्यों नहीं टैकल करते? आप कभी भी इकोनॉमिकली वायबल नहीं हो सकते. आपने $130 बिलियन लोन देना है और हर महीने $4 अरब आपको बेच करते हैं उसका इंटरेस्ट. आपको 1000 साल तक ये नहीं दे सकते और आपको IMF के कंडीशन माननी पड़ेगी. $1 बिलियन के लेने के लिए आपकी क्या हालत हो रही है? मर रहे हैं हम लोग, लेट रहे हैं उनके आगे, जो कि आपको मिल जाएंगे और डॉलर भी 184-85 भी आ जाए. वो एक सेपरेट लीगल है. 1160 लोगों ने, अरे 22 करोड़ लोगों को होस्टेज बनाया हुआ है पिछले 75 साल से. ये दुनिया है हमारा. क्यों हो रहा है इससे? 1160 क्या मायने रखता है 22 करोड़ की आवाम के साथ? उनको कोई पूछने वाला ही नहीं है. 1160 आदमी हम ऐसे पीछे ढोला पीटते रहते हैं. Unless you stand on your own feet, you can never succeed in your life. आपकी तनख्वाह अगर 5000 है तो भाई आप 4999 रुपये को खर्च कर लें. 5020 रुपये ना खर्च करें तो 20 रुपये जो है वो आपके जान को आ जाए. आपके पास पैसा नहीं है, अयाशियाँ देखो आपकी. Look at the state expenditure. They should be ashamed of themselves. लोग सड़कों में भूखे मर रहे हैं. ये नहीं कह रहा कि मैं गलत बात कर रहा हूँ. हम लोग तकरीरें करते हैं. The solution is not in making speeches or delivering speeches or giving some points कि ऐसे करते हैं ऐसे करते हैं. रूट काज. एक आदमी बीमार है, डॉक्टर के पास जाता है, वो उसको एग्जामिन करते हैं. एग्जामिन करने के बाद वो फिर उसको कुछ टेस्ट देता है. जब टेस्ट का रिजल्ट आता है उसके बाद वो मेडिसिन देता है उसको कि ये आपको आराम आएगा। तो जब तक हम 130 बिलियन डॉलर उनके मुंह पे नहीं मारेंगे उस वक्त तक यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं होगा, यही जारी रहेगा, इकोनॉमिकली डिप्रेशन रहेगा।
शिमला मैंने आप का 130
सर एक मिनट मेरा पहले का 2-3 क्वेश्चन है, जैसे व्हाट्सएप पर आ गए तो फिर आप इकट्ठा जवाब दे दीजिएगा। आपका भी है, आप भी सवाल कर दो। चलें
Sir, Shahnawaz here. Sir, actually you emphasize a lot on the ideology that the different countries' economy grew because they adhered by their ideology. Do you think that the slogan of Islamic ideology, meaning rhetoric to revive our economy and all, because as there are so many factors already in Islam, like created by our ulamas and our mullahs and all. So how do you foresee the future Islamic ideology, like reviving our, economy? Thanks.
ठीक है, 1 मिनट सर, 2 क्वेश्चन हो गए। आपका भी क्वेश्चन
I will start respond to your question first because it's a question of our demand. The existence of an economy is, by definition, related to the availability of 3 factors, where there is territory, where there is population, and therefore there is an economy. Right? So the economy does exist. The demand is very simple. The demand is that right now our economy is a captive in the hands of the institutions. It's a coup of the servants over the employers. We are the employers. The 4 institutions consisting of 2.6 million people are servants. They have freed themselves from audit. They have freed themselves from being questioned because of laws. We are saying भाई 70% आप का यहाँ से इस शहर से खाली इस मुल्क को चलाने के लिए जा रहे हैं पैसे। 2.6 मिलियन लोगों के ऊपर 82% आपके बजट का खर्च हो रहा है और आप पूछ नहीं सकते कैसे और क्यों। 222 मिलियन लोगों के लिए जो हमारी आबादी है उस पर आप 18% रख रहे हैं और आप 2.6 के ऊपर 82% खर्च कर रहे हैं। ये क्या है? Free the economy. Please free the economy. Get out. Remain accountable. You see, ये हम लोग बुत परस्त नहीं है कि एक आदमी को आपने पकड़ा, उसको आपने वर्दी पहना दी, उसको टोपी पहना दी, या उसको विग पहना दिया, जज बना दिया, या उसको जनरल बना दिया, उसके बाद आप उसकी पूजा करने बैठ गए कि भाई तुमसे बड़ा कोई नहीं है। ये क्या है? He's a servant. He's a public servant. He's accountable. He has to be accountable. That's it. That's our demand. You cannot, absolutely cannot, allow them a free hand.
Sir, this what my point is. ये reforms, economic reforms नहीं है। ये तो आप economy को reform नहीं कर रहे हैं। ये तो वही
We are wanting to liberate the economy. Let's put it this way. If that satisfies your question. Sir, your question was about the settlement of $130 billion. Now to me that is printed paper. Yeah, please write behind it. That to me is printed paper. Now, if it was for frivolous purposes, we could have put a better picture on our printed paper. So printed paper does not have an intrinsic value in economics in its own right. It only represents the strength of another economy. Today the American economy is a deficit economy. So why are we worried about the dollar? Why are we saving in the dollar?
America has
the right to print as many dollars as they want because
Precisely. So why are we following it?
that is the system, but we can't do that.
You see, we can't do that का सवाल ही नहीं है ना. बिल्कुल सवाल नहीं है साहब. You're a handful of people at the top are forcing this down our throats. It is not their right to do it. When I'm saying link the rupee to the gold, your one rupee becomes equivalent to $5.11. One rupee. They will not do it. Why will they not do it? Because they are following a colonial agenda. That's all.